set, Bob?
Start asking for receipts, that's all.
Oh, I hate that shit. Good evening, everybody. This is the May 20th meeting of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Wareham. Roll call, please.
President Selectman Whiteside, Chairman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, and Town Administrator Sullivan.
May I make a motion that Mr. Titlebaum be clerk?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
300. Mr. Holmes is away on business, and Mr. Tropiano has a family matter today. Announcements, Mrs. Whiteside?
Yes. A long time ago, when I was a selectman in a former life, we had a wonderful ceremony on Memorial Day. Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day, and it was to honor the dead who had served their country. The ceremony that we had here in Wareham entailed having veterans and others on the riverside and putting a memorial wreath in the water. We're doing nothing this year, so I'm going to read a couple of things into the record. Originally called Decoration Day from the early tradition of decorating graves with flowers, wreaths, and flags, Memorial Day is a day for remembrance of those who have died in service to our country. It was first widely observed on May 30th, 1868, to commemorate the sacrifices of Civil War soldiers by proclamation of General John A. Logan of the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of former Union soldiers and sailors. During that first national celebration, former Union General and sitting Ohio Congressman James Garfield, who later became a president, made a speech at Arlington National Cemetery, after which 5,000 participants helped to decorate the graves of the more than 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers who were buried there. Garfield said, "We do not know one promise these men made, one pledge they gave, one word they spoke, but we do know they summed up and perfected, by one supreme act, the highest virtues of men and citizens. For love of country they accepted death, and thus resolved all doubts, and made immortal their patriotism and their virtue." The most famous dedication speech, as you all learned in 10th grade English, is Abraham Lincoln's, which I'm also going to read. The individual who was originally scheduled and gave an address at the dedication of the Gettysburg battlefield gave a 2-hour oration. This one probably took 4 minutes. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do so. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to make the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, November 19th, 1863. My sincere hope is that somebody in this town can revitalize what we did so many years ago. It is really beyond my understanding that there are no celebrations in this town. And for those of us who were in the 60s, female, we got off easy. Because in the 60s, men got drafted and women did not. So I'm a child of the 60s in terms of not having to go to war, but many of my friends and family did, and many of them did not come back. It is to their memory that I speak tonight. It is to honor people like my daughter, who works in the Wounded Warrior program at Walter Reed Hospital. It is to all of the people who support those who have fought on behalf of this nation.
Thank you. Mr. Titlebaum.
I do have a few in the announcements folder here. First one is the Joseph Vasconcellos Memorial Foundation. On June 21st, 2014, the Joe Vasconcellos 6th Annual Memorial Baseball Tournament will be held. It's held at the Wareham High School Spillane Field. Proceeds of the game benefit a graduating Wareham High senior through a scholarship. The 5th $1,000 memorial scholarship will be awarded to a graduating student. What else? I don't have a time here on the letter. Perhaps they could get that. We can get that on the town website on the calendar somewhere. But anyway, Saturday, June 21st, is Joe Vasconcellos Memorial Baseball Tournament. Second thing, Thursday, June 5th, 2014, is a fireworks fundraiser. This is at the Mezzaluna Restaurant in Buzzards Bay, 5:30 to 8:30. Tickets are $10, including a chance to win a door prize and complimentary hors d'oeuvres, live auction, 50-50 raffle, and gift raffles. Make checks payable to Town of Wareham Fireworks Fund, P.O. Box 799, Onset, Mass. 02558, or donate securely online at onsetbayfireworks.com. And again, that's Thursday, June 5th, 2014, 5:30, 8:30 at the Mezzaluna. There is an additional announcement regarding the startup beginning on Friday of the Cape Flyer. That's coming through again. What the message was from the people who are running the train was to parents to watch your children, that these trains come through a little bit faster than the trash trains in certain areas of town. So if you live near the tracks, if you've got kids, you know, make sure they understand they need to stay off the tracks. The second issue with regards to the Cape Flyer is that due to a review by the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, which is basically the state agency that reviews all state projects to make sure that they are compliant with the federal Americans with Disabilities Act, they have decided to instruct the MBTA and the Mass DOT to install covering over the platform. I don't understand myself how this exactly implicates disabled or handicapped issues, but perhaps it does. Perhaps there's a sheltering need for people who rely on mechanical ways of getting around. I don't know. All I know is that this apparently is what they're requesting. So that's what's causing the holdup down there. Otherwise, I believe we would have been ready for the Friday run, but you know, we have to comply with what the state does. It is a state project after all, and we just need to continue to be grateful that they're even doing this in the first place. And that's all I have.
Thank you. First item I have is there will be a clam bake on June 22nd at Zecco Marine. Start about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It will be sponsored by the Celebration 2014. It will be the first event in the series. There'll be a choice of lobster, steak, or chicken, clam chowder, steamers, corn on the cob, watermelon, potato, sausage. The price will be $50 each. You can contact Claire Smith or myself. We both will be selling tickets for the event. We had an event yesterday on Stormwater management, we also have another event coming up on June 24th. This is an issue which the board has brought up. It will be on our agenda in a few weeks, talking about MS4 and stormwater pollution, so everybody should keep ahead of that. That has to do with drains in the beaches for stormwater. It also has to do with stormwater pieces itself on the streets where they've started to collapse a little bit, and other issues. Let's see. Division of Marine Fisheries, please check with the Harbor Master's office. We've had a bunch of areas closed all the way through this summer, and we have some areas that are open. I won't go through all of them because there's about 16 pages here, but this will be posted up at the Selectmen's office as well. Please check though, because there are areas where you should not be doing any shell fishing. Next on the list, Mrs. Heath is here, so she'll like this one. Good morning. Please be advised that Bill SB 1856 was enacted by the House yesterday and should be en route to the governor's desk. This was last week on Thursday. I expect to hear any time now that we should hear the governor basically signing the sewer commissioner bill and releasing that. Under the piece that was passed by town meeting way back in 2010 is how the ascension from the Board of Selectmen to an accepted group of elected sewer commissioners. They will basically be up for election the first week of April on a Tuesday of 2015. They will actually take office on May 1st. Anyone has any questions, just check the charter. It's all listed there how it's going to work. It's in Section 8 of the charter. We also have from the State House the bill for the 4 liquor licenses are basically going to Senator Pacheco's office, and that will be filed with the Senate first. The other bill that we had talked about, which was that they were working on possibly removing from the ABCC the state issuing the liquor licenses to the cities and towns actually controlling the liquor licenses and no longer having a quantity restriction. The note I have back here is that they don't have much hope this will actually pass through, but at least they're looking at it. The other issue, extremely important to the town of Wareham, is Bill H1115. Sponsored by, again, Susan Williams Gifford, has to do with modular homes being counted as affordable housing. That bill has been sent to study, which is a magic word for disappearing, along with many other Chapter 40 reform bills. I don't believe we're going to have much success again, unfortunately. There's not enough people that are elected positions willing to sponsor this. I think that's what I have there on that.
May I?
Yes?
I would like to ask her to submit it again, and I have an attorney who will write it in language that may make a whole lot of people stand up and take notice.
We can go back in the fall when it either dies, whatever happens to it, because study usually means dying.
It means die, it means buried.
Yeah, that's the word for it. We have Cape Cod 5, which hasn't officially opened yet. They are making an announcement. They are going to work with a seed corporation, and they're going to do a workshop for the local residents and small businesses. This will be on June 18th. Christopher Richards, who's the regional manager, will be running it with the Seed Corporation. And it's Seed Corporation and Cape Cod 5 Cent Savings Bank presents free, which is not bad, basic entrepreneurial workshops in Wareham, Wednesday, June 18th. Basically, the Southeastern Economic Development, which is Seed Corporation and Cape Cod 5, will hold 2 basic workshops in Wareham aimed at assisting potential and existing entrepreneurs. The free workshops are being held in cooperation with the U.S. Small Business Association, which we all know is the SBA, Massachusetts Small Business Development Center, Cape Cod Canal Chamber of Commerce, and SCORE. Both workshops will be held at the Cape Cod 5 Cent Savings Bank, 10 Rosebrook Place, Wareham, which is the new facility, on Wednesday again, June 18th. The first of these workshops, entitled Learn the Fundamentals in Planning, Preparing, and Financing Your Business, will be held from 9 a.m. to noon. Registration begins at 8:30. Breakfast and lunch will be provided free of charge. The workshop is geared toward helping potential entrepreneurs evaluate and understand the fundamentals of owning one's own businesses. Information on how to get started, where and how to get financed, and the loan application process will be presented. Attendees will also be provided with a free guide to writing a business plan and other materials. The second workshop, Understanding the Purpose of Financial Statements and How They Can Help Determine the Health of Your Business, will be held from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. The focus of this workshop is to help attendees understand the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statements. The workshop also explains how a small business owner can anticipate financial needs in order to operate his or her business more efficiently. You can call SEED at 508-822-1020 to register for either one, and both sessions by Wednesday, June 11th, and get directions to Cape Cod 5. Cape Cod 5 is basically located right at the corners of 195 and Route 28, the new Rosebrook facility. This is a project which we talked to Cape Cod 5 about to try and help our local businesses, and this is the first piece. I expect many more of these to happen. You have to give me a minute here. It's a busy week for stuff coming in.
You want to mention the Article 18 stuff, too? I
Hmm?
can do that.
You can do that. We also have a project through SERPED, which is a $100,000 Mass Works program for brownfield site assessment and economic development of the Tremont Nail facility. We're finally on the list, and we're in a current situation. We've ended up in the last 4 years never getting to the plate. Every time we get just about there, the money has run out. So we have some work to do over the next 2 days, and hopefully we'll get this in, and we have a good shot of starting to work on the Tremont facility. This particular grant program is at no cost to the town. And there are no strings attached either. That's it for today for me.
I just have one more. It's more by way of news. Article 18, which passed at town meeting, moved the date by which the school committee and the town administrator will provide budget information for the town meeting warrant and for the purpose of review by the selectmen and the school committee and so forth. I'm sure much to Mr. Sullivan's pleasure, the Attorney General has approved the date change to roll that back. So that will provide everybody more time. The timelines associated with that in the charter didn't make sense. The town administrator was supposed to prepare a budget and provide it to the selectmen by December 15th, yet the school committee typically doesn't finish their budget up until the end of January. So as you can imagine, there's about 6 weeks there where we're dealing with uncertain and often illusory numbers. This will rectify that deficiency and make a much more streamlined budgeting process going forward.
Just so everybody understands, this particular item that was passed at town meeting and approved by the Attorney General now is at the clerk's office. And what happens is, because it's a charter change and not a special act, it doesn't go through the House and Senate for approval, which can take anywhere from 5 months to 3 years. It basically goes to the next town election, which would be April, I think it's 3rd or 4th next year, and it will be on the ballot. And once it's approved at the ballot, then it becomes effective. Unfortunately, for the next fiscal year, the school department and the town administrator and capital planning don't have any advantage of this. They've got to wait 1 more year to take effect. Thank you.
One question I have is whether this can go on as a town ballot question for the November election. But we'll have to check that with council and see if we can do that.
I think usually, we can check. I think it might be an issue.
Next item, citizens.
Go ahead.
Next item, citizens' participation.
Chet?
Boy, I have to say that I have so much more respect and admiration for you guys after the work I've been trying to do on this suggested change for the motel stay. You guys are wonderful, I'll tell you. What I'd like to ask of you is whether we can place a discussion of that possible change onto your agenda so that we can discuss it here at the town meeting.
What do you mean by town meeting?
I'm sorry, town meeting, Selectmen's meeting.
That particular question I can't answer today for you. As I said before, that's a Board of Health regulation which they can pass.
Okay.
Which they did, over in Bourne. So we would
Okay.
have input, we would talk about it and give them input, but they actually, again, they make the final decision.
Okay,
And
and I
they would-
understand that meeting will take place tomorrow, and I did speak with the health person, and they said that they would be speaking about that issue tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, the reason I ask your permission to put it on your own agenda is because it raises such basic issues with the town itself, the whole community. We're talking about issues of economic exclusion and economic segregation. And there was some discussion among you wonderful people last time, and I'm not sure that everyone was clear on exactly what was happening there. So if you would consider, please, allowing a presentation about that information, I'd be very grateful for a time on your agenda to speak about that.
If you go to the meeting tomorrow, I'll send a note off to Bob Ethier that I don't believe they're going to actually pass anything tomorrow.
I see,
I believe
okay.
it's going to be discussion. So what I'll do
I
is
see.
I'll go ahead and just make life easy. I'll schedule this for the 10th of June.
Wonderful, that's super. All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
the issue does raise an important point, and the speaker, to the extent that he believes our input is important, perhaps it would be wise in concert with any discussion on the 10th to possibly make a recommendation as a body to the Board of Health, stating what we feel, and authorize you to send a letter in that regard, depending on what the board thinks.
I think when we discussed this last week, we actually talked about doing that.
Right. I think we need to formalize that process and do it all at once, if we could.
We'll put it on the agenda that way.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for citizens' participation?
Mrs. Heath? She's taxpayer, homeowner. That's okay.
I'd like to congratulate you, all the selectmen, and especially Judy Whiteside, for helping to get this bill for the sewer commissioners finally, after 3 tries and 5 or 6 years, to where we will next year be voting on sewer commissioners. And I think I would like to see the board or somebody send a letter of thanks to Ms. Gifford and Senator Pacheco for making sure that this finally got where it belonged. It was a long, hard road, and thank you. Very nice going away present.
You're welcome.
Yes. Mr. and Mrs. Bruce.
You're going to bring us some goodies now?
Yes.
I'd rather have the full type.
Me too, right now. All right.
I hope those aren't full. We have a policy about that.
Okay, I really hate sitting in this seat. I'm very nervous. I don't know why. I just want to first start off by saying how much I really love this town. This past weekend, we had all kinds of things going on. The Wareham Little League had a Meet the Coaches dance. WCTV did their A&E Arts and Entertainment. The YMCA did their 5K road race. The Wareham Garden Club had their plant sale. The Scotty Montero Foundation did their golf tournament, and lots of people still came out to pick up trash. I haven't come before you before with any issues about this, because I just think it's my civic duty to go out and do this, but I had a couple of issues. One, I know that on Saturday, a family had just cleaned up Charge Pond Road. I was at the baseball field at my son's baseball game. There was a car accident right at the entrance to the baseball field. One car, I guess, drove away, one was towed. The pieces of that car are still there. They were still there yesterday. It didn't get cleaned up. Why is that the case? Why do we just have taillights and fenders and stuff like that laying around? Another issue I had. I actually brought David Pichette, our conservation agent, out to West Wareham with me. There was an area where the train bridge, where the road goes over the train bridge, that was particularly nasty. We spent 2 hours cleaning up trash and actually separated all the trash. And these 4 bags of nips are just from that one 500-foot section of road. This is one side of the road. This is just the roadside. This is not the embankment. If anybody wants to go over there and look down the embankment and see what it looks like, it is a absolute embarrassment. Sorry, I'm just trying to stay focused here. Okay, so anyways, we have a problem. So we need to figure out what we're gonna do about this. I'm happy to help out, but this is really absolutely shocking to see this many nip problems. This is a really big issue, and we shouldn't have to live like this. I'm not here to bash anybody, but I'm not here to make friends either. So I'm asking, I know what I did for 4 days. Is it possible that I could get a copy of what the maintenance schedule is for the next 2 weeks? Is that a reasonable request?
Can't ask that. We had Mr. Sullivan look into it for you. That's part of his responsibilities, not ours. But
Okay.
we can certainly ask.
And on that same line, I just have to say something about the crosswalks in Onset. This has been an issue since we were there in December, and it was dangerous then. So don't get mad, but what if I told you there's 12 people over there painting the lines right now?
I would have said they were already painted by municipal maintenance this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
They actually were painted.
And that's wonderful. And thank you to all of you and our finance people and our school committees, et cetera. We have a lot of faith in you, and we love our town. People wonder why we love our town. Just watch what goes on around here on a regular basis. This is just a tipping point. You all should read the book Tipping Point. This is just a tipping point. If you think about it, we have 15 or 20,000 folks that live here. I guarantee you that 100 people or less are doing this. 1 nip a day, 365 days a year. Just do the math.
Actually, the
These
nips
people-
came in a 3-pack in a bag.
These people, to some, what did you say?
There were 3 nips in a bag. There were lots of those, so.
I have a lot of knowledge in this regard.
I really want to be brief, and I shall, and I'm not known for that. We need to make an example of them or do something, and I just want you to know that we care very much about it, and we're willing to do whatever it takes. Our beautiful town just does not deserve this, and it's I'm going to say, use the term, a handful of people that are doing this. There are thousands of wonderful citizens and merchants that sweep in front of their store, and folks who pick up in front of their home, or when they walk across the street to Dunkin' Donuts, pick up a cup that's blowing around. That's all I have to say on that, too. I would like to say, and again in brevity, on behalf of 2½, Mayor and I both feel this is no time to be austere. Those of us who have been through 42 years of business and what have you, you have to spend money to fix things and do it in a reasonable manner. And we have faith in you guys, and thank you again, and our financial people and our school committees to do 5-year forecasting and review it on an annual basis. But you have to spend a little dough, and it's no time to be austere. And lastly, Selectman Whiteside, on behalf of my grandfather, who was in the Army in World War I, in the Navy in World War II, and myself a Vietnam veteran, I very much appreciate your commemoration, and we'll do something about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as a quick,
Thank you.
Mary, just as a quick few answers for you. We'll ask, basically, Acting Police Chief Walsh to check on the tow policies. My understanding is when there is an accident, it's the requirement of the tow company to clean up all debris from the accident. If there is stuff left behind, that means the tow companies are not doing their job, and that's not acceptable. The other issue on the trash, I know we've worked together with my wife Sandy, picking up trash all over the place. Item number 23 out of the 31 this board has adopted for doing work and stuff. One is trash litter, adopt a no litter town campaign. It's up to this board to actually put that together, so we're on the same page. And
I know we are.
I have contacted the VFW. Unfortunately, the VFW said they themselves will be going out and going to the cemeteries, but not in official capacity for Memorial Day. I have not heard back from the American Legion, because last week I mentioned that Charlie had passed away, who usually handles all that, Charles actually, and that we were trying to find somebody who would pick up the slack, and so far nobody has.
The flags are being put on the graves.
Yeah, but
That's being done.
they usually go out and they do a flower ceremony at Bessie Park, and then they hit the 4 cemeteries.
Okay.
And it's pretty sad. Thank you.
And, I
Thank
think
you.
just from
Oh.
my end. I'll ask Mr. Menard to reach out to you. I think he's not really interested in making friends, but not hurting feelings either, so you guys should get along famously.
That's
on
fine.
this.
I know, I don't think I was too nice to him the other day.
It's okay. Anybody else? Okay. Yes, Mrs.
Mrs.
Slavin.
Slavin.
Good evening, Sandy Slavin. I said I wasn't going to do this,
You couldn't help yourself, we know that.
but it's been 2 years since one of the members of the Board of Selectmen said that they would take on creating a trash committee. 2 years, we don't have it. Can you please maybe find somebody else that would be willing to take on that task?
We will basically, as I said, my item number 23 that I put together, we will be putting something more formal together rather than a trash committee. This will involve getting certain parts of the town, such as the police department, Board of Health, et cetera, involved in not just a trash campaign, but a no litter campaign for the town with actual penalties for pet. So this will happen, separate from the trash committee.
Okay, and I do know that there is a potential meeting coming up in the next 3 BOS meetings to talk about consolidation of several committees, and the trash committee was mentioned. And I now pledge a pan of fudge to the first policeman who issues a litter ticket in this town. Thank you.
Consider it a bribe? It's under $50.
Yeah, is it under $50 the value?
If it was brownies, I'd do it.
Next item is, anybody
Anybody
else? No. Next item is issuance of certificates.
Mrs.
Why don't we
Whiteside?
let Mrs. Whiteside take this one over.
This is in reference to the tremendous help that we got doing Lopes Field just recently.
A couple of citizens complained to the Board of Selectmen that it was unsightly and unsafe and sort of gross down at Lopes Field. And they were correct. And instead of just writing the letter and going away, they got involved in getting a group together, getting donations, getting about 50 people out on May 10th for 4 hours. And the number of certificates that we have to offer to all of the people who worked is phenomenal. But I do want to recognize, and I had them in order before I left the office. Here they are, okay.
This is why I was happy to hand it off to you.
Yeah, I knew that. Roger Long, Pat Long, Mary Kiley, and Jerry Kiley. Would you come forward, please? Yeah, sure. I think it's really important for the town to know how many businesses supported this. And I want you to know, without insulting them, that these two women are the greatest curers I've ever met.
So when you see them on the street corner, they're actually.
Yeah, they are curing. And I think that what we've learned is that the community would back us in an effort to completely rebuild that playground. And I think that these wonderful
Got a bunch of others there, too.
License and permits.
Okay, licenses and permits. First up is a one-day wines and malt application by Tia Mazzoni. Come forward, please.
Yeah, just go for this file, too.
Okay, let me just give a second. I wasn't aware tonight that we weren't going to have our regular clerk until this afternoon, so let me just check and make sure we've got what we're supposed to have here.
No problem.
Check I did everything else there.
Okay, we've got the tips, we've got the liability insurance. It looks as though everything is in order here.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us about your event?
My company, Inky Bracelet, is turning 1. So we're having a party, and Matt's Blackboard is catering it. He's here. And we're at Box Mill Hall at Tohonet Village, and we need a one-day liquor license to serve beer and wine.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, I move that the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen approve a one-day liquor permit application in accordance with the provisions of the statutes relating thereto. Application for a one-day liquor permit to Anchorby Bracelet, Tia Mazzoni, 54 Cushnet Road, Mattapoisett. This is a private party to be held at the Box Mill Hall, Tohonet Village, on May 31st, 2014, from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. for beer and wine.
Second.
Any questions? None heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 300.
Congratulations on a one-year birthday.
Thank you very much.
You can stop by the office and pick the
Tomorrow.
permit up tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next up is a request for use of town roads by Wareham Summer of Celebration 2014, care of Rudy Santos, for the use of Viking Drive and Kennedy Lane for a fire muster and public safety events on July 13th, 2014, from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. And we have some 2014 folks coming up.
Good evening.
Why don't you get some free advertising for this one?
Well, I'm John McGonnell from the Summer Celebration Committee, and we are requesting use of Kennedy Lane and Viking Drive on that particular day. We have a multitude of events going on. There is an antique hand tub fire muster. There will be various public safety demonstrations. There will be a CHIPS program, which is a child identification program for parents to identify their children in case they're lost through DNA, fingerprinting, and tooth molds. There'll be a 18th century baseball game played later in the day. And there'll be demonstrations by EMS and the Harbor Masters Department in addition to the police and fire departments. Should be a fun day for adults and children, and there'll be food and refreshments available.
You said it all?
He said it all.
I've got no questions. Mr. Whiteside, any questions?
No questions. Oh, yes, I do have one question, excuse me. Is Viking Drive a town road or is it a school road? I hate that question, but it actually is, it's actually plowed by the schools, so I'm guessing it's under the schools thing. I don't know whether you have to have their permission as well.
We've listed it on the school applications.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we can move both and approve both, and then if they have
Does-
to get a subsequent approval from the schools, then.
Does Nora need a ticket for the clam bake?
No.
Okay, since we're all set, I move for the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen to grant permission to the Wareham Summer of Celebration 2014, care of Rudy Santos, 53 Main Street, Wareham, Mass., to use Viking Drive and Kennedy Lane for the following event: fire muster and public safety events, July 13th, 2014, from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 300.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to that event.
Next.
Okay, next up is a request for use of town property by Wareham Summer Celebration 2014, care of Malcolm Finney, for the use of Tremont Nail Factory site, Town Green, and the old Town Hall parking lot on June 13th, 14th, and 15th from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. for Redcoats and Residents Craft and Living Program and Encampment. Good evening. This is
How
your
are you?
opportunity to make a pitch.
Okay. This is actually part of the celebration, and it's celebrating the 200th anniversary of the British invasion of the town of Wareham. And on June 14th, we're going to have a military encampment on the town green and also on some private property down the road. That's going to involve British soldiers and American soldiers from both the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. And in those encampments, you will be able to experience what life was like for the soldiers during that period of time. There'll be a number of living history demonstrations within the encampment. Also associated with that will be everything from a fife and drum demonstration to artillery demonstration. Also, pretty much in the area of the Tremont Nail is going to be a living history program, and we have a number of people coming who are going to demonstrate and do interactive programs that have to do with crafts and lifestyles of that period. Be everything from a blacksmith to a early 19th century tea party. And we also are going to include a program that will tell about the iron industry in Wareham and Tremont Nail industry itself.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Titlebaum, we're going to go ahead and read the motion, please.
Yes, I move that the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen grant permission to the Wareham Summer Celebration 2014, care of Malcolm Finney, 40 Oak Street, Wareham, Mass., for use of the Tremont Nail, Town Green, and Old Town Hall parking lot for the following events: Redcoats and Residents Craft and Living History Program and Encampment, June 13th, 14th, and 15th of 2014, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 300.
Once again, this will be ready tomorrow in the Selectman's office for you.
We got 7 more for that.
Yep. Next up, we have a request for use of town property by the Wareham Summer Celebration 2014, care of Malcolm Finney, for the use of the Wareham River and Oakdale Boat Launch for the Redcoats and Residents Reenactment Program for pyrotechnic barge to simulate attack by the British. Simulate, huh? Not real?
No, that happened 200 years ago.
Okay. On June 15th, 2014, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Why don't you tell us what this one's all about? It sounds exciting.
Well, again, we're going to bring about some history. We are putting together a program which I think will tell a fairly accurate story about how the Wareham was attacked by the British in June 13th in 1814. When they did this, they attempted to burn the cotton factory, a home in town, and they did burn a number of ships. So we have engaged a pyrotechnic company to come and to do simulation of that with some daytime fireworks, because when the British did try to burn these places, they used a rocket to do that. And then there'll be some simulated smoke, basically vapor, that will simulate the burning of ships. Upper Cape Regional High School is actually building us some ships that will be used to burn. So.
Any questions of the board?
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, I move that the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen approve the application of the Wareham Summer Celebration 2014, care of Malcolm Finney, 40 Oak Street, Wareham, Mass., for the use of the Wareham River and Oakdale Boat Launch for the following event: Redcoats and Residents Reenactment, pyrotechnic barge to simulate attack by British, June 15th, 2014, 9 a.m. until 4 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 300.
And once again, this will be ready for you in the office tomorrow to pick up.
I'll have my secretary pick it up.
Better you
You
say
trained
that
her
than
well.
me.
She's quite silent.
I'll pay for that.
So will I.
You will. You know what they say about payback.
Oh, yes.
Did you do Bessie Park?
You haven't done that
No.
one
No.
yet. Got one more right here. Yes, it is.
It says Wareham Waterways, Bessie Park, Main Street, Merchants Way. Is it in there?
Right, but we don't have it here. It's not noticed.
Yes,
Say Bessie Park anywhere in there, so.
So I thought we were missing.
It's all part of the same event.
it's not on here.
So we'd have to,
We'll have to come back next week. It's not noticed.
let me check and see if we have the file stuff anyways.
See if it's in one of the existing ones that got merged in together somehow.
Yeah, it's number E. It's E on your agenda.
It's E under the agenda.
It is.
E,
That's
Yes.
the old agenda.
that's the one I was provided, and I believe that's the one that was,
Yeah, we don't have any paperwork here.
I just gave it.
Yeah, but I'm saying we don't have it there. Where's the agenda with E?
No.
She might have included it as one whole packet.
Okay.
You want a copy?
what do we got?
We can-
Let me look through those.
you have a copy of it anyways, right?
Yep, it does.
This one here? We've already got a copy of it, so it just wasn't in the folder. If the board so chooses, we could put it under the 48 hours.
Well, the only issue is we're waiting on Board of Health and Fire. I don't see those. Those are both circled as not having been provided, so perhaps that's why the office didn't get these on your agenda.
I think we were going to approve it, waiting for the,
We can
Fire
certainly do it, we can certainly do it conditionally, that's not a problem.
that's
If
the one
it-
we had to do conditionally, maybe that's why it didn't get there.
Okay.
This one has, okay, that's the one I just signed, so give it.
Yeah.
Try to keep these separate so you don't get the,
Go ahead, we'll do this
just getting
one.
more involved by the minute here.
We'll do this under the 48 hour.
Trust me, I know, I understand very well.
1 second.
That's for,
Red coats.
that's that one.
Maybe I'll take a few minutes just to talk a little bit more about the celebration. This event on June 14th and 15th is going to be incredibly wonderful for the town, and we are expecting a very large turnout. We will be doing mailings to each and every household in the community to give them a calendar of events, as well as a special edition of Wareham Week that will be coming out the first week in June, so that everybody will know exactly when and where all the events are. For the Residents in Redcoats event, parking will be up at Rosebrook. Because there is limited parking in the historic district, we will be running a shuttle bus from Rosebrook, so we want to encourage people to park up at Rosebrook and take the shuttle bus. In addition, there'll be a trolley that will travel down Main Street, so that if people want to go downtown to visit the restaurants, and we fully want to support the Main Street merchants, so we'll be running a trolley back and forth down on Main Street. And also, the Historic Society will be opening up their buildings at the end of Main Street, and Mac has some things planned for down there as well, so that people can take those in. So that weekend is gonna be a real full weekend of events, and I would encourage all the residents of town to take advantage of this weekend. It's gonna be a super weekend to bring your family out and enjoy all the festivities.
Any other questions?
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, I will make a motion with conditions. I move that the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen grant permission to the Wareham Summer Celebration 2014, care of Malcolm Finney, 40 Oak Street, Wareham, Mass. And this one is for the use of the Wareham River. No, that's the other one. This is Bessie Park, right?
Yes. That's the right one.
Okay, it is the right one. Of the use Wareham Waterways, again, that's what confused me. Bessie Park, Main Street, and Merchants Way for the following event, Redcoats and Residents Reenactment, June 15th, 2014, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Said approval conditioned on receipt of approval from the Wareham Fire Department as well as the Town of Wareham Board of Health.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 300 with conditions.
Thank you.
One of the great sidelines that's come about from this is that in getting the different militia units to come, there are towns in Massachusetts who are just excited about coming down here, and they have been so helpful. And I think it's a good way of reaching out to the other towns and getting involved with them. We're actually doing a trade-off. The Wareham Minutemen will be going to Yarmouth this summer, later on this summer, to participate in a similar event there, and the Yarmouth Minutemen will be coming here to help us out. So it's interactive with other towns, and it's been very, very rewarding to work with them.
Matt, do you have I know you've been drilling, the militia have been drilling down in the historic district. Don't you have a camp set? You guys set up camp or something, or put your tents out?
Oh, that's going to be in a couple of weekends. We're going to break out all our camp equipment and set them up and find out which pegs were missing, which poles were missing, and so forth and so on. Because the Wareham Minute and Militia Company, even though they were very active during the bicentennial, has just been reformed as an 1812 unit, and that has grown. Almost every week we get more people involved. We're trying to be as realistic as possible, so we're going to have a shakedown of that. But that's going to happen in my backyard, because I'm not lugging the stuff all over the place.
You can have a turkey shoot then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the regular town business. Now we switch over to sewer business, as the third meeting of every month is basically dedicated towards sewer. The one issue I have is, so far we haven't had enough to justify a full meeting. If this continues, we may change our policy on this. First up, we have the Wareham Pollution Control Facility billing system. Mr. Campina? With the imminent change in the sewer commissioner's status from the Selectmen, I think at least we should recognize as a board, there's only 3 of us here, we really need to have 5 members if we're doing anything with any real policy decisions. It's not appropriate to go ahead and do it like this. Also, we have to recognize that since we will be short-term sewer commissioners, that is it best for us to go ahead and change the whole system or fix some issues, fix up some policies you have, and the board will have to make that decision as well, because we really have to realize that we may do some changes, but come May 1st next year, someone might decide as a group that they want to completely revamp everything again. So I'm not sure we want to make sure that when we make the changeover, it's clean, but I also don't want to put anybody coming in a very disadvantaged position, that's all. So that's going to be discussed as well, I believe. I don't believe we're prepared to do anything with the 5-member board on the billing system itself at this point. I think we'll put it off for the workshop. I've got item number C. I want to reschedule the workshop for the 21st. We still haven't got all the stuff. We still have some backup information from Ty and Bond coming, and several of the selectmen were going to be doing some background work, and they're not ready yet either.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, are you saying that June 21st will be the meeting?
The workshop
for the
meeting.
ED workshop, and everything to do with the billing will not discuss until that time?
Right. We might meet ourselves, I might have an item in there just to catch up on some of the things that we were supposed to discuss ahead of time. We're not prepared yet for it, so I'm not going to put something out that's not correct. Proposed grease ordinance, that's yours now.
I think with the billing, we do have an estimate of what the EDU rate would be for the next go-around.
Yeah, we could do that also.
Yeah. So,
What I'm concerned about is we do get the billing out time-wise. The last time we held off on the billing, we made it very difficult for the residents because we banged it up against 2 or 3 other bills, and I don't want to do that again. Do we have an estimated figure?
today, with the ratepayer revenue required, it's $4,796,500. We have an estimate of 9,050 EDUs.
Correct, 9,051 EDUs. Correct.
That would be $530 per EDU.
Well, what I would say is that there's only 3 of us here, so I would put it off till either next week or the 3rd, depending on, get at least 4 or 5 members here just to vote on it to get it done. That should give us sufficient time to get the billing out, and then we'll go back and we'll fix some of the outstanding issues Selectman Tropiano had in particular, and see if we can get the EDU numbers to work on those, how we do the EDU itself, for measuring. In other words, we're charging somebody for a particular business X number of EDUs. We have a couple outstanding questions. We see if we can fix those on our own.
I'm
Chairman,
curious.
just what was the date you were putting this off to, so I can make a note for you in the file?
21st for the workshop.
21st for the workshop, but what about the policies and so forth discussion?
Well, the policies, we can, basically, Mr. Campina can speak about that a little bit today.
Yeah.
Because this is his
And
request.
the EDU?
And the EDU itself, I would basically, I believe we're gonna have one selectman out on the 27th. We can ask if he wants to be here, and if he does, it'll be the 3rd, or it'll be the 27th.
Okay. I'm just making a note, so when you review these, you'll remember what you said.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say, if we're going to wait until the 21st to do EDU discussion, and we're also talking about changing the structure on a temporary basis, then that would definitely affect the budget. And I think so, in this example, if we're going to say that each EDU for a specific type of building or business is going to be a new number, which would directly affect the EDU structure, I think that we should resolve that issue before we set the EDU, because we may have to raise it, because it's a dollar figure that we're working at, and so we got so many EDUs. If you're changing per EDU, as an example, if a business is charged 5 EDUs now, and you reduce that to 3 EDUs, well, someone's got to pick up the 2.
Understand.
And so we're going to spur. So I'm wondering if we should do that before we set the EDU rate. And so I think we could discuss all that probably at the 21st workshop, as I would suggest, before we set the EDU. And we should set the EDU by July, end of July, because we want to bill August 1st.
Yeah, I think 9,050 was a conservative estimate, right?
It's a conservative estimate, and we are gaining EDUs because, remember, we're in the middle of an EDU audit, and we're still gaining EDUs because we're finding properties aren't charged properly. But nonetheless, if we do change it, it's going to affect groups of business, and so I need to know what those numbers are going to be. As an example, restaurants are 12 EDUs per, 1 EDU per 12 seats. If we're going to change that, then that's going to change every restaurant. So that, I'm just curious as to that.
I think we only had one small issue that we were talking about with the bays and garages with one particular person.
And that, if that's what we're doing, because I understood it to be across the board opposed to just one isolated circumstance. And I think that's what we're picking out a circumstance. We're going to change an EDU policy for one type of business and not all types of business.
That's
So
all
I
we're
don't know how
talking
we're
about
gonna
now,
do.
because what we're really talking about is not just EDU, but if we go to a base, if we end up going to a base system with a base usage, and then charge from that point on, which is, based on actual usage, which I'm not saying that's the way the board's going, but that's the way the leaning was, then the EDU becomes irrelevant.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. If we don't get to that point, the 21st, we still have to set the EDU going in till we can get bills out for August 1st in a timely manner.
We're going to have to use the EDU system at least through the next billing cycle.
I would suggest that.
And then somewhere down the line, we'll have a program put together and make a decision.
And so my suggestion would be, yeah, I agree with you, but then if we're going to start playing with the EDUs in particular business, we should hold that off until we got exactly what we're going to do with the structure in general, because all that may change. So instead of just pulling these isolated things out, we'll just do it as a whole, and that would be discussed at the EDU workshop and how we're going to move going forward.
No, I just wanted to echo what you said about, the concern here again is that if the sewer commissioners are going to take this over, how much do we want to get into it? But that's going to be up for us to decide presently.
And that's definitely going to be your decision. And I'm just wondering if we're talking about a lame duck situation where most things are going to get put off, and we just, chug along until we get to that point. I don't know how we're going to handle it.
Well, I would hope that we would be able to at least do some of the groundwork, so if we don't make the final decision, we have all the information there for whoever comes in behind us to be able to easily make a decision.
And what I'm saying is I think this board has enough information and enough wherewithal and enough knowledge to make important decisions that's going to affect the ratepayers. And then when the new board takes over, they can pick up and do their job. But in the interim, I think this board is qualified to continue to act as sewer commissioners and do what needs to be done going forward.
Grease.
That's just...
Okay.
So anyways, grease policy.
Yep.
I'll put these policies away. I got these from these are all policies. We'll put these away. You don't want to discuss those. Grease. In the town of Wareham, we have quite a few restaurants, and they're contributing to a problem in our collection system and our treatment facility, and that is excessive grease is making it to our collection systems. And if you remember, we had quite a grease spill or a grease blockage on West Boulevard, I believe it is, in Onset that caused quite a bit of sewage to get to the bay and a closure of shellfishing. We've also had individual restaurants back up into their kitchens and into their parking lots. And one of the cases I gave you in particular is about a donut factory that had extensive problems to the degree of adding 400 parts per million of grease and oil. It's fog. It's a measurement, analytical process to the system where 100 parts per million is what's acceptable. So what I'm asking is that we talk about setting some type of requirements to clean out their grease traps on a regular basis, and thereby keeping that grease out of the collection system and getting rid of the problems that we have in the collection system. The problems are numerous, but the biggest one is the sanitary sewer overflows. And when you start having those, the EPA gets a little upset, and then they start imposing mandates or consent orders, and we want to stay away from that. So this is a very basic, what I'm asking, I sent over to the board a very basic fats, oil, and grease policy, regulation, if you will. And it's just simply saying, as you read through it, it's simply saying, you will pump your system. You will, Title V speaks to that. I've already addressed this with the Board of Health a couple of years ago, but Title V speaks to the fact that at the very least quarterly, or 25% of that tank, the grease trap, triggers a pumping of that grease trap. We just need to enforce those policies, and that's all I'm asking, and that's what these things do. As an example, we define best practices, fog, what an establishment is, and what a grease trap is, and that's in this document here. And so it's just a definition. Then it talks about the effective immediately or whatever you want for a date, but it has, I believe, 9 points. Maybe I'm wrong. I think 9 points, 14 points. And what that discusses the particulars about pumping your grease trap. Things like education. It's important that they educate their staff. Signage, logs to log in that you actually are maintaining your grease trap. It has a form that the pumper, when he goes there to pump out that grease trap, he fills it out. It also talks about a monthly inspection to establish a pumping of your grease trap because everybody's different. You may have a restaurant like Subway that does no cooking whatsoever. So in the first year they do the monthly inspection, it turns out that, my goodness, they don't need to pump at all, so they may pump once a year. So that's specific to that business. Another business may be a type of restaurant that does a lot of frying. So that restaurant may need to be pumped out monthly. Heck, some even weekly, whatever the case may be, to get the grease out of the system. So those are the type of things that are in this policy, simply stating that the restaurant will be responsible for the maintenance of their grease traps, external and internal. And I think it's a good approach, I think it's needed in the town of Wareham because we are seeing quite a bit of grease. And it also, Mr. Chairman, contributes to a lot of the odor sources we have. We just spent close to $400,000 to cover a lagoon to address these odors, and if you pull any one of these pods out, you will see a bunch of grease floating. And grease, as you're probably aware, is very odorous because it's degradation of food particles, and so it gets pretty stinky. So if we can get it at its source, which would be cleaning out those grease traps, I think we can eliminate a lot of costs at the treatment plant. So that's where we are.
Mrs. Whiteside?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Campina. Are these regulations based on somebody else's? I mean, did you have a template for either from the state or other facilities to do this?
Yes, ma'am, I have a couple. This is the City of Taunton's grease ordinance. This is their ordinance. And we have 2 sheets.
Okay.
And this covers everything. I also looked at the ordinances from Rockland, Bill Ricker, recommendations from the EPA. So we've done some research, and grease ordinances are something that most communities throughout the country are starting to enforce.
Okay, thank you. And then, is this what Greasilla is going to take care of?
Greasilla is going to take care of this product that we're asking them to pump out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. It seems to me that this is a fairly comprehensive, although simple, regulation or set of regulations. And we have been talking about it for a while. Mr. Campina has brought the issue before us on a couple of occasions. So I would be in favor of adopting them.
Mr. Titlebaum?
I just have one question. I am aware, although I don't know the specific provisions, but there's somewhere in 527 CMR, which is the state fire code, that relates to the issue of grease and ventilation systems. Have you had any occasion, or do you think there's any need to discuss the issue of grease just generally with either of the fire districts to find out what their inspection processes are and so on and so forth? I guess what I'm trying to figure out here is, it would seem to me that the same kind of people are going to handle grease if it's up there or if it's down there. It's probably the same grease company. So to the extent that there could be simultaneous inspections, things of that nature,
It's such a good question. It really is 2 separate types of grease removal, because you're talking about the grease in the ventilation that has to be extracted differently, which usually through some chemical treatment, cleaning and type thing. And they haul that away because it's contaminated.
Okay.
We also have some provisions if some of those systems, modernly they have some flushing going on and takes them into the grease trap. So that would be self-cleaning into the grease trap, and then we have provisions for the grease trap. I have not talked to the fire department. I could. I know that the restaurant itself hires an independent company to remove that and take it off-site. So I didn't bother looking into that, but I know about the provisions, but I have not coordinated between myself and the fire department.
Mr. Campina, has this been gone through by town council?
I'll answer it this way. We sent it to him quite a while ago. He has reviewed it, but presently I can't say, so you may want to have him review it. These were all based upon, 2 years ago we took this to the Board of Health. At the time, council reviewed it. That's 2 years ago. So I'm going to say to you that at that time it was vetted, but recently, no.
Have there been any changes to the state rules? I thought there was some issues on, food product and stuff going through.
No, this has nothing to do with this, but
No,
when they're
no.
talking about the digestion, I think Bourne's putting a facility up, Plymouth is putting, everybody's, the food digestion, which is digesters, anaerobic digesters, but this is simply speaking of the external and internal grease traps in restaurants, institutions like nursing homes, hospitals, things of that sort.
What's the cost going to be to our businesses?
I'm sorry?
What is the cost to the local businesses with this?
Depends on the business. Example, we just took 20,000 gallons of grease today out of the Wareham crossings. They have a few restaurants, and it's costing them approximately, it's 10 cents a gallon to us, and each tank is probably 1,500 to 5,000 gallons, and the company hauling it probably gets 35 cents a gallon. And they're supposed to do it quarterly anyway, so there is a cost to the business, but it's just a cost of doing business. And so they have to hire a company. It's their job to negotiate the best deal. Tipping is tipping. It's always 10 cents a gallon here to tip. We're probably the cheapest around, so they would have to, negotiate a cost with the business as far as the cost of transportation and cleaning it. Some are more than others because some businesses pump regularly, and so therefore it's a minimal impact. Others only pump when they have it backed up into their building, and that's a significant cost. So it's an individual thing.
Do we have any other water pollution control facilities adopting this particular type of policy?
This policy is adopted throughout the state of Massachusetts. Very few municipalities are without a grease policy. They're everywhere, absolutely. They're common.
Is there an industry standard for how much it costs to treat a gallon of grease, let's say?
To treat it at the treatment facility is pretty universal because, again, it's quantity. And bluntly, most municipalities don't want to touch it because it's a tough product. It takes a lot of time, energy, And it's something you have to be on top of. So the cost, it's costing us probably around 5 cents a gallon. We're getting 10 cents a gallon. So in the industry, between 5 and 7 cents a gallon of those that treat grease, but most people don't want to touch it.
And tipping doesn't mean that you guys are receiving tips or extra money.
No, it's the tips we get are through the troughs that comes through the normal sewage, and that's coins and things like that. So that's a tip that the guys get. But other than that, this is a fee that they pay to dump it.
Thank you.
I would suggest, if the board's so willing, that we basically just get town council to give us a current update, make sure everything's in place, and then we can go ahead and vote on it.
However, the board's pleasure. It's been vetted once, and it's all statutes that are existing, but I don't have a problem with that.
We'll bring it back on 6/3 and
Yeah,
take care of it
that's not
early.
a problem. I sent you a bunch of emails, and this is what I'm talking about. The second part of this, I'm not ready to discuss tonight. It's called Cease to Grease, and it's a program developed by a really ambitious young lady. I had the privilege of being at a seminar last week with her, and she gave a presentation in Dallas, Texas. And what they're talking about is grease in the home. And you know, it's funny, I didn't realize that grease coming from the home was a larger problem than grease from the restaurants. And she brought that to our attention. And so what they did is, what I emailed you, some of the links, that is their program. It's been adopted by the EPA. It's won multiple awards, and she's traveling the country to introduce it to all states. And so we are going to get part of it. I've asked Mr. White, because he does our one where the yellow went program, to get in contact with her. And she's given us permission to use everything. And the city of Dallas spent millions developing this program. But this, I just want to give you this, I'll give you a copy of it just to see what it is. This is what each house will get. And
Yep.
the beauty of this is the oil, the oil that people put down the drain normally is going to be collected and brought to the treatment facility. And the city of Dallas, they run every single school bus from the oil from people's homes.
Yeah.
It's an incredible program, and it's one to be emulated, and we're trying to get that off the ground and ask Mr. White to take the lead on that. So yeah, it's very important. And the second part of that, the backside of that, we're talking about baby wipes and how it's really caused quite an impact in treatment facilities. We have we go around and we unclog pipes like crazy, pumps like crazy. It's a constant thing. And this program addresses that. And in that seminar, this is going to be crazy, but we learned how to pull baby wipes out of the sewer system, identify them, track them back to the individual company using it, and then being able to go to that company, or whether it's a nursing home or a daycare center, and simply stating that, get them out of the system. So because it's become such a problem, and it's really, you have to see or go. They're actually on the town, the TV we have here locally, there's a program, and it shows us deragging a pump of that very problem, and it's crazy. So that's the second part of that program. So we're pretty excited about it. So we're doing a lot to get it out. And the impact is the cost, the man hours, the downtime, and not to mention the overflows coming into the streets. And that's the real issue. The sanitary issue, public health and safety is the real issue, and so that's what we're going after. So we're excited about that, and I'll bring that to you at a later date. That's why I gave you the information to digest. We'll bring it at a later date and talk about that, because it's going to be an exciting program. It really is.
Any questions from the board?
Just have one observation on the grease. I can remember when I was a kid, my grandmother used to take the grease from anything she fried, and she would dump it into a peanut can, and then it went out somewhere where the birds could peck at it. And
It was a coffee can, and you filled it with bird seed, one layer, and then you put all your grease in it, and then the next layer was bird seed, and you had a dowel in it, and you fed it to the birds.
There you
Suet.
go.
You made, it was your own suet.
Now, my solution for bacon grease is to dump it on the dog's food. They get stuck eating the same thing every day of their lives, so I figure, it's a good way to get rid of it. It doesn't go down the drain, and, they're interested to have a different taste periodically.
And that's a great solution. And also taking the pan itself and wiping it and throwing the paper towel away, because it's a little bit. And I'll tell you one final thing. We pulled a pump at one of our neighborhoods, a very small neighborhood. It has its own pump station. We haven't pulled that pump station in 2 years because it's that new. The pump has been showing high hours. That's what led us to do this. That entire wet well was full of grease. I'm talking thick grease. I'll download the pictures and send them over to you. It's really, it's insidious. But so the point is that you just simply don't think of residential areas being a major contributor of grease. And so by providing cans, what they do in Dallas, and I really think it's unique, is they provide these stations that you can just pour your oil in. And we take it away at no cost to you. Your bacon fat, you pour into a bag and just throw it out. We'll pick it up. And so the initiative here is to get people to recognize that it doesn't belong down the drain, and we'll actually take the step and pick it up for you. So, and then we can use that for whatever. It's a revenue source for us. It cleans the drains. Everybody becomes a winner. So it's an exciting program. I know it's kind of gross, but to me it's exciting because it saves us a lot of work.
Any questions from the board? You'll bring that back to us soon?
Yeah, absolutely.
No samples, though?
No samples at all. And I want to say, finally, addressing the point of agenda, Mr. Chairman, I think I told you I'd sit with you, but I've got a list about this long that we could definitely do many agendas on. And I know that we're skirting some facts about who's taking over, but I think these are issues that we've been kicking for quite some time, and I think that, any action on them would be appropriate. I really, truly do. So,
well, we have you coming back in a few weeks with Dave Menard on the stormwater management.
June 10th?
June 10th, I believe.
So what I can do is
before we start lecturing the board, maybe we should just lecturing the board on doing their job. We'll take a step back, and they're working on it.
I understand. My intent is not to lecture them at all. Yeah. It's just, I think my intent was to answer the question. Yeah, I think they're qualified. I just don't think this and to sell themselves short is what I'm saying. They shouldn't sell themselves short. They definitely are a knowledgeable board, and they can answer and do that. That's the point that I wanted to make.
I think they're all right, too.
Yeah, that's not the point. The point is that someone else coming in, a lot of people think whatever's there, they want to change. I just don't want to do a lot of work and then get people used to something, and then, 5 months later, the whole system goes upside down. Mrs. Whiteside.
Well, yeah, I agree with that comment, but I also think that putting it off until, May 1st is ridiculous. We have issues that this gentleman, that we can help him with.
Yeah.
They are not probably going to be turned over by a board of people who are elected because they want to deal with this kind of stuff. We may not want to change how we do the billing, from EDU to usage or something like that. But I think that there are a lot of other things that we can talk about, and we should. And in fact, the issue of not addressing the sewer separately was we were written up for that in someplace, I can't even remember.
DOR.
Yeah, okay, so the DOR really wanted us to focus on it, so let's focus on it while it's still our job.
We're basically going through a bunch of these issues, and Mr. Campino has given them to us, and as we do them, we put them on. Again, the billing issue is the elephant in the room, which we obviously can take care of if we so wish. Mr. Titlebaum.
Just with regard to the scheduling, I agree. There's nothing wrong with having Mr. Campino come in once a month as opposed to 4 times a month. I'm sure he enjoys that. So to the extent that the 3rd week of the month is, the sewer night, that's fine, but I think that what we're going to run into, and we're going to have to get in the habit of this anyway, once that authority is taken away from us, we've got so many other issues to deal with. I think there are nights when, perhaps when there's less sewer business that month, we should be tackling some other things here. So that's the only thing I would have regarding that, but, certainly defer to the chairman's right to set the agenda on that.
I believe when the DOR, what their concern was that we had you here all the time, and we weren't really doing anything, so they wanted to see one week out of the month where you came in, which is what we've done, which follows the DOR recommendation. So we'll continue.
I have no problem with it.
If you can also take a look at the policies. If you don't have a copy, let the office know.
I did. I have here. I was prepared to address and do some changes on.
What I'd like to see, if you could, I don't want you to do our work, but if you could just give us some technical comments on some of the policies. We've taken some of the selectmen's regular policies and moved them over to the sewer policies.
Okay.
So we need to go through, very much like we did with our regular policies, go through, clean up, correct, and we'll sign the policies out when everybody's here, and we should really get those done in like a month.
Yeah, I have those. The ones that I got from Shirley, I've actually
Okay.
taken the time and
So
I've.
anything
lined them up.
technical that we probably are not gonna know,
I
that
have
kind of help would be,
Okay.
yes.
I have 'em. I'll get them off to you, line by line, the suggestions and the reason for it and why technically it's unsound or sound. Absolutely. No problem
Okay,
with that.
and I think you also sent us, we talked about the stormwater management, possibly setting up a committee.
Committee, one of
But I
the,
think I sent you back a note, we already had, because we had one time, but never really was done anything. We already have between, you know, certain department heads in town, enough of a group to actually have its own committee that can meet during the daytime. You know, town employees, at this point here, I don't think we're gonna find anybody more expert than town employees, especially for municipal maintenance, yourself, and Board of Health, and Dave Pichette, et cetera. You know,
I
for
don't disagree with
conservation.
you're absolutely right. I don't disagree
Because
at all.
every one of them is constantly going to seminars and training on these issues.
The committee, Mr. Chairman, is a responsibility of MS4 program, which you already have a permit for, so it's just
Yeah.
fulfilling that obligation, that's all. And at that, I think June 10th, we'll talk about that. And we've started our mapping of the sewer system, and in that process, we're also gonna map the outfalls for the sewer, for the storm sewers. We're gonna do the mapping of that too, to start that program of testing, which is gonna be the next round, so we're gonna address it all.
We're mapping under the GIS program, correct?
Correct. We started that today. We're really excited about it. We officially got out there. We're actually doing the locations of the manhole. It's really exciting. It's great. I'm enjoying it. And then while we're doing that, we're along the waterways, and so we're looking at the outfalls also. So we're going to label those. And we do a lot of testing anyway, so we'll start testing those outfalls and see what we're getting and follow those back to try to
They're
address
talking
that
about
issue.
those outfalls as being a fairly substantial source of nitrogen too now.
Absolutely. And so to test them to get a definitive, and then when we talk about treatment, we'll know exactly what area needs what treatment. So it would be cost effective for us, opposed to just going and doing everything without knowing really what has to be done. So the testing is a very important part of this. So we're setting that up. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that too.
I think the other issue that we need to get up on the agenda soon is the comprehensive wastewater management plan, and talking about going back and changing and modifying, which they said they would allow us to do. I think that's a meeting all by itself.
I agree, and we've worked on that. I've got a couple proposals for you, and some ideas and some concepts. We're working on that, absolutely. And some other things we'll talk about is we're looking to do some outreach. We've got an opportunity to sewer a part of town that would ordinarily wouldn't get sued probably ever, and we have a great opportunity, so we'd like to bring that forward, and I think we should discuss that. There's a lot there, so I'll give you all that I have, and you tell me what you want, and we'll go from there.
I believe I mentioned to you that I think Buzzards Bay Coalition, when they heard that we were actually contemplating a possible change there, they almost kissed me, which is pretty scary.
And it's a good idea. The timing is right. And this board itself addressed it a year ago about talking about modifying it. So to see working towards that, and that was my point about this board can act, because you guys have been with it and have all the qualification capabilities, and that's what we'll talk about.
And so hopefully we'll get that in the third week in June.
Okay, I'll get it to
among
you. And
a
you
few
can
other
get it on.
things.
Okay.
Anything else on the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Okay, the next item is any other town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to the posting of this meeting.
I already did that.
You already did that?
Yeah.
Did you jump around?
Good night, Jerry.
Okay, next item, town business. Update from town council on special municipal employee exemptions.
I've got a note that Rich sent me. Let me see if I can. Oh,
Get
sorry.
right up to it.
I have a note from town council on this. If you just give me a minute. Yep, you have a copy? Let's see what I got here. No, this is just something I kept ahead of time, so I downloaded it beforehand. Basically, what town council has said, that all board members would have to hold the designation in order to perfect the designation. Let me just find one other piece I've got from him. Gmail. I'll just read exactly what we have here. You have on the agenda item tonight concerning special municipal employees. The State Ethics Commission has constantly ruled that when it comes to appointing special municipal employees, all members of any given board or commission must be treated equally. Therefore, the proper manner of appointing a special municipal employee is to appoint all members of a board or commission rather than one individual member. The designation will continue to apply to subsequent office holders until such time as the Board of Selectmen choose to revoke the designation. So therefore, I believe, I think Mr. Sweat, we did one for, and we have Mr. Lockwood that we haven't done yet, and we also did one for Ken Ferrara, who went on to the Board of Health.
I thought there was one for Mr. Ferrera, but apparently the office is having difficulty locating that one. We can make this real easy and just take every board, committee or commission in town and grant them all special municipal employee status and just be done with it. Not have to deal with it even on a committee by committee basis. I mean,
What is the benefit of having special municipal employee status?
you can do business with the town and yet serve on a committee, and if any business that involves you comes up, you simply recuse yourself. The lack of this was used as a tool to keep people off of boards, committees, and commissions in the past, which was why it was important, I felt, and previously we felt that we had to rectify that so that we could build up a volunteer base rather than convict people ahead of time, simply based upon the fact that they might have done business with the town or did business with the town at one time or another. The onus is still upon the individual to back off of any decision-making or hearing or involvement in any matters where they might have an interest, a financial interest, professional interest, so on and so forth.
I understand that on an annual basis, you have to fill out the, I call it the conflict of interest form, but
Yes.
so I actually call it the cornflakes of interest form. So I don't have a problem with that, but do you want to make a sweeping decision like that without the full board here?
Oh, no, it's not even on the agenda to be voted. This is just an update.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a policy change, then the
It
chairman
is
would
a
have to...
policy change.
The chairman would have to put it back on, and we would have to change the policy and get advice from council presumably ahead of time to make sure it comported with the law, and then try to get a vote of the full board on it. I wasn't suggesting that we take care of this tonight. I was suggesting that in the future, we just come up with a blanket policy and be done with it.
We had gone back, I think, last year and put this exemption back in. And one of the reasons being is between the ethics rules and everything else the state has in place, it really polices it on its own. I don't think we need to be sitting there telling people you can't be on a committee, because we can't trust you. That sends the wrong message to me. So I'll put it back on the agenda. Probably maybe for the 10th. The 3rd is quite busy. So I'll move that back to that. Give everybody time, but it's less cumbersome if we do it that way. Next item.
Next item is the town administrator's report.
Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Over the last several weeks, municipal maintenance has been dedicating their time on cleaning, mowing, and preparing the cemeteries for Memorial Day celebration. We were distressed that, I believe it was in the last week, the Agawam Cemetery had 13 spigots, including the piping, stolen, most likely to be traded in for scrap for whatever someone would use who would do something like that. So I'd like to apologize to those that have their loved ones interred at Agawam and let them know that we are moving as quickly as possible to get those repairs done. Again, it's a disgusting act, and obviously it wasn't something we had done, but I still apologize, and I'm pretty well mortified by it. We have placed the 3 new kiosks. They've been installed in Onset. They're being tested and getting ready to work for the season. As part of that as well, we are working on getting the proper signage, and I'll check with the harbor master on the status. I think we still need to get those in. If everybody remembers, last year from the Onset parking pier, approximately $30,000 was used to balance out the FY, I think it was FY 13 budget at the time, and the rest of the money that was in there was used to pay for the 3 new kiosks. So there isn't a pile of money sitting around to do that. We're trying to use other places to find the money to do it. Lastly, we're coming up to the end of the year. We had a department head meeting today to go over some of the budgets and see where they stand and what we might need to do for any of the municipal relief transfers. The largest one that we've had an issue with is the street lighting. We did not do a transfer at town meeting for it. It was, we looked at it and believed that there was a grant that was able to fund it. However, that was not accessible, so that's something we're trying to work on. We have lowered that account over the past few years, and it looks like that's not sustainable, so that may be something that we'll have to adjust in the budgets going forward. And lastly, it looks like on June 2nd, we have scheduled a meeting for the Economic Development Self-Assessment Tool. That's what all the notices went out, so that's interesting. We feel it's a tool that will help Wareham going into the future, and all those that have been responding, we appreciate their help. Besides that, the last week has been mostly labor negotiations, which take up a good portion of the day, so thank you.
Mrs. Whiteside, any comments?
Thank you for having a sense of humor about a very difficult job.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Nothing, thank you. Next item is liaison/initiative reports.
Yep. Mrs. Whiteside?
Yes, yesterday I attended labor negotiations on behalf of the Selectmen with the school committee. That is an ongoing process. And that's, I think, the only one that I have to report on.
Mr. Titlebaum?
The only thing I have really to remark upon is the Beach and Tourism Committee met last week. We're in the process of getting a 5th member on, and that application will be heard and voted on by the board, I believe, next week.
Yes.
So we'll have a full committee to do the work.
Just in sort of the vein of the liaison reports, it's often that many of our department heads are liaisons to certain boards and committees. Being a liaison does not mean that they have to come to those meetings. They often are working on other items. And if you feel that them not coming is in some way a slight, it's not. They do have a lot of work that they need to do. And if you feel you can't do the job without them on there, I think you can see where I'm going with it. So,
Yes, we can.
thank you.
That also covers sometimes when we go to meetings, we sometimes make more work than is necessary. Oh, I can speak for myself, fine on that one. The Bike Path Committee, we met actually last week on Thursday. We walked Sandwich Road and Minot Ave. Derek and I survived. We didn't get run over. We basically scoped out the both roads to try and find out what was the best solution for the bike path to go through Wareham, basically going out that way over to the existing path over on Onset Ave. And we had the Mass DOT with us, Serped, and one other gentleman that works in another part of Mass DOT. And we basically, it looks as if the road of choice is still going to be Minot Ave at this point.
I think I also got the idea of where I stand when I was the only one not given an orange vest. So,
Yes.
orange safety vest.
Well, we figured you were big enough they couldn't see you.
Yeah.
That was one piece we had. I'm trying to think. What else we have? Actually, I have a meeting tomorrow morning, first thing at 9 o'clock, with Onset and with Wareham as far as the public safety officials. This is will be the second of what Mr. Teitelbaum affectionately calls the PSAC Committee, which is Public Safety Action Committee. And we will start discussing possibilities of how we can put a safety complex together. I've also heard from Ray Goodwin that Onset is actually planning on building a new fire station. And they threw out an idea which was quite interesting, that if they built a new fire station, would the town of Wareham Police Department like to have an annex in there as well, so they have quicker response to the areas. So this is just the beginning, again, of cooperation between, the districts and the municipality of the town of Wareham. On Thursday, I'll be meeting with the prudential committees for the two fire and water districts and also the water commissioners. And we'll be sitting down talking about where we can possibly share resources and just see what initiatives we can put together. So this is something we've talked about. It's now actually starting to put together, and we're actually starting to have discussions. I'll update everybody as it goes along there. I think that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, next item is consent agenda, authorization to sign bills and documents, et cetera.
None.
No bills.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 3-0-0. Motion by Mr. Teitelbaum, second by Mr. Whiteside.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.